Hello and welcome to the Washington Week webcast extra, where we pick up where we left off on the weekly broadcast. I'm joined around the table by Ashley Parker of the New York Times, Nancy Youssef of McClatchy Newspapers, and Pete Williams of NBC News. We want to start at the Supreme Court, where the justices heard arguments on some pretty interesting topics this week, including whether pregnant workers are adequately protected on the job. Pete?
Right. There's something called the Pregnancy Discrimination Act passed by Congress. Now, it obviously means that you can't discriminate against workers when it comes to giving a promotion or a raise, and say you're not going to get a raise because you're pregnant. The hard question here is, what about people who are in jobs that require physical labor? And this involved a woman who became pregnant while working for UPS.
Peggy Young?
Yeah, Peggy Young. Her doctor said she shouldn't lift anything more than 20 pounds. Now, she said, that's not a problem for me. I pick up little light packages at the airport. But UPS said, I'm sorry, we can't accommodate you. She says that UPS told her to come back. She was too much of a liability while she was pregnant. So the question is, when you make some accommodations for some workers, is it discrimination not to make it for pregnant workers too? And what her lawyers...
There's already an anti-discrimination law on the books from 1978.
Right. That's right. So, by the way, UPS has since changed its policy, and they now say we wouldn't have done what we did. But what the problem here is that UPS basically says we treat pregnancy like you breaking your ankle at home, like an off-the-job injury. We would give accommodations to people who get injured on the job, but not off the job, and not people who get pregnant. So what about the fact, though, her lawyer said that, okay, but you do make some accommodations for people who, get convicted for drunk driving, because that deprives them of their Department of Transportation license, so they get some sort of light duty. The problem for the Supreme Court is trying to find a way to, probably what they'll end up saying is, if you're going to have any class of workers at all that you give a break to for light duty, you can't say no to pregnant workers, and they'll probably have to, if you don't do it for pregnant workers, you'll have to try to go to court and explain why.
I like that crack about the broken ankle. By the way, I picked up on that. I know what you were saying. I want to ask you about another court case, which is involved online threats in Facebook.
Yes.
And it was completely a whole different world. Once again, the justices keep getting pushed into this technological wonderland.
Right. So again, we have another case. Sometimes the Supreme Court decides what the Constitution means. These are two cases of interpreting federal law, statutory interpretation. And this one is a law against making threats. The question is, what's a true threat? Now, this involves a man whose wife left him, took the two kids away. He became despondent and started posting some pretty bizarre things on Facebook, thinking about ways that he could kill her. She got worried, got a restraining order. He wrote on Facebook, fold it up, put it in your pocket, will it stop a bullet? Those are just some of the things that he said. The government prosecuted him, and he said, wait a minute, you're using the wrong standard. He was convicted at trial, and the judge said to the jury, the test is, would a reasonable person looking at these messages consider them a threat? His lawyer said to the Supreme Court, no, that's not the test. The test should be, what was in the sender's mind? What did he intend to write? The Supreme Court didn't seem to like either one of those tests. They're going to try to come up with something in the middle that will stop genuinely true scary threats, but leave some, as the justice would say, some breathing room for, they actually talked about Eminem, they talked about rap music, and not making the law so harsh that it would stop that kind of expression.
I would have given money just to listen to Justice Roberts quote Eminem. It would have been worth my whole week of work.
I could have gotten you in.
You could have gotten me in. Actually, I want to ask you about something which is just under the surface here, which is, while we're all watching everybody ramp up for 2016 and decide how they're going to fight, this battle, whether they get in or not, there's a whole nother 2016 primary season which has already begun.
Yeah, there's a ton of sort of million behind-the-scenes quiet primaries for instance, Mitt Romney's Money Network. He had a very good, strong finance team, and if you believe that Mitt Romney is not going to run again, like most of us don't think he's going to run again, people are courting...
Even though he's still leading polls, such as these polls are worth anything at this point.
No doubt, yeah, yes. leader in the polls. But he had Spencer Zwick was his finance guy, so Spencer is getting courted by all of these campaigns to see, would he be up for coming on? What could he do with donors? Not only individual people, but groups, whether it's Americans for Prosperity or individuals like Sheldon Adelson. You have all these campaigns reaching out and wooing them. And one thing that was most fascinating to me is that normally in one of these sort of invisible primaries that then becomes visible, you wanted to score a big image guy, right? So if you were the Democrat, you wanted to land a David Axelrod or a for Republican Mike Murphy. Now what people are going to be looking for and want to boast about is what digital team they get and what analytics team. And that's what people are going to be looking at. Oh, did you get Deep Root Analytics, or did you get targeted victory? And that's sort of the new metric for cooling campaigns I think we'll start to see.
Oh, well, it's something fun and new to track this year. And Nancy, I want to wind up by talking to you a little bit about Iran, because one of the interesting things in this ever-evolving fight against ISIS is strange bedfellows. Are we now on the same side as Iran in this fight?
Kind of.
Kind of.
This week we saw this manifest in that Iran used F-4 Phantoms and did airstrikes in eastern Iraq, hitting ISIS targets. We're hitting.
This is the first evidence we've had that they have been
that's right.
overtly involved.
That's right. They hit. Now their airstrikes are a lot smaller than U.S. airstrikes. U.S. has been focused on the west and the north, and so both sides are going after the same enemy, ISIS. It's one of the reasons that Ash Carter will inherit a complicated job, because it's hard for the U.S. to make a concession that Iran, who was attacking U.S. troops just a few years ago, is now a needed ally in this and confronting ISIS.
Now, for the record, we don't acknowledge that we are in league with Iran in any way, right? No.
No, because, again, it gets very, very messy. In the same way, and this came up during Hagel's term as secretary, the U.S. effort in Syria is arguably helping Assad. These are the strange alliances, because by going after ISIS, ISIS is not only a threat to rational stability, but it was a threat to Assad. And if ISIS is defeated, potentially, Assad can survive the uprising against him.
In the meantime, we are still at negotiating table with Iran about their nuclear stockpile.
That's right.
This is very complicated.
Yeah. And you really see it play out in terms of not only how we talk about it, but how announcements are made, how they talk about the strikes, even how they talked about learning of Iran's strike in Iraq. Who told you? The Iraqis told us. Well, didn't you see it? Well, we have eyes. Did you talk to the Iranians? We don't talk about it. What did they hit? We know, but you don't need to know. Okay, so that's the kind of.
I like the way you acted that out. That's really
yeah. That's how it really went down at the Pentagon this week. So, but yeah, it's made very, very strange bedfellows, and this is the complication of the Middle East, particularly in the post-Arab Spring. That shifting borders, shifting leadership, the destruction of the status quo, and everybody vying for power has created strange bedfellows and people trying to defeat these Sunni extremists.
Fascinating. Well, thank you very much for watching it for us. Thank you all as well. We're going to get off the air now. Stay online and read my take this week, in which I wish for a magic wand to solve life's problems. You have to find out what that's all about. You can look at pbs.org/Washington Week. And we'll see you next time on the Washington Week Webcast Extra.